Hello and welcome to April Untangled. Today is Sunday, the 29th of April, and tomorrow it is a full moon in Scorpio. I think that's quite powerful. I can feel it right now. It's either that or my hormones. I've got to that age where I started blaming everything on my hormones. I hope that you have had a wonderful April. Mine has been really I don't even know what word to use to describe it because it's just been so horrendous. It hasn't been horrendous, but it's just been really disruptive. That's what it's been. It's been a disruptive month. The first 2 weeks of the month were the school holidays, and it rained every single day of the school holidays, which was quite interesting. And then Mercury was in retrograde for this entire time. And then there was the new moon on the 15th. Mercury went back to normal again. And it was like a huge, massive weight lifted off the whole world. You know, not just me. I really felt it, to be honest. But mainly because there was the new moon coinciding with Mercury going out of retrograde. And it also coincided with the weather just completely turning around in the UK. It went from being pouring down every single day to glorious sunshine, and the difference that it makes to the national psyche in the UK, you would not believe it. Everybody goes from being right miserable old gits to really happy, smiley people. It do I just mean me? It it was quite strange. And then so I had 1 week of bliss, and then the kitchen guys arrived, and I really had hoped that they were only going to be here for a week, and it's not turned out that way. And so currently the whole downstairs of my house is completely uninhabitable. Uninhabitable. I wish I was better at English. Everything's covered in dust and everything's out of the cupboards. I spent most of yesterday washing things and putting them back in cupboards because they've assured me that they won't need to get stuff out of the cupboards again. But we are currently living in the front room, which is Betsy's playroom, which is, I mean, you can imagine what a 5-year-old's playroom would look like. It's not a soothing atmosphere. You're sort of watching telly at night with Barbie doll legs stuck up your bum, and yeah, it's a bit crazy. We're all a bit irritable because we can't live our lives the way we normally do. Normally we've got the front of the house, which is Betsy's playroom and the office, and then you go through into the kitchen, which is the kitchen and the living area, which is the back of the house. The back of the house is totally a no-go area. You just can't do anything there. You can't sit there, you just can't do anything. Darren's currently down there watching Formula One. He's perched on a stool painting shelf brackets. So he's doing that. I've come upstairs to podcast because tomorrow is the last day of the month, and I haven't had a chance to film this all week, and I'm not going to get a chance to film it tomorrow because they're coming back. And I've got to take Betsy to a party, a football party, I think it is. I don't know, in an hour. So I thought I'd better get a wriggle on. I wrote some notes out yesterday, but even yesterday was disrupted. Somebody from Darren's work came round, and I am really praying for some peace and quiet. I wonder how your months have gone. The full moon tomorrow is a pink moon, and it's in Scorpio, and Scorpio is quite an intense sign for the moon to be in, and I always feel like the full moon is a time to let go. This one feels more powerful than preceding ones, and my whole theme for the year seems to be letting go. I've finally clicked on to that fact. In fact, I had a dream in the week, and in the dream I'm climbing up a sheer rock face, and I've got all the climbing gear on, but I'm not clipped in. And I used to rock climb. I know that probably seems quite bizarre, but I used to rock climb, so I know the feeling of being clipped in. But I wasn't, but I did have all the gear on, like had chalk on my fingers and climbing shoes on, and I was carrying what I couldn't quite figure out if it was Betsy or if it was my inner child. It felt more like my inner child, and that element of my dream, the inner child or Betsy, didn't have any climbing equipment on, so I was responsible for them. And we're trying to climb up this sheer rock face, and we just can't. And so we start slipping down, and it's terrifying. We're really high up, and it's terrifying. We're not tied in, and that's the reason that I stopped rock climbing, actually, because I'm not. It just seems the most ridiculous thing ever to do when I'm actually not that great with heights. Anyway, so I'm terrified, I'm petrified, we're slipping down this sheer rock face, and then I just think, there's no point in being this terrified, so I step off, and as I step off, there's this pole, I don't know why it was a pole and not a step ladder, but anyway, there's this pole, and I slide down the pole and to safety. I woke up and I was like, wow. If ever a dream was trying to tell me to let stuff go, then that was it. So yeah, this full moon, letting stuff go, hoping, fingers crossed, that the builders will leave by the end of the day. Please, just let them go. Let them go, and then I'll be a bit happier. I can't be too gloomy. The kitchen is going to be wonderful. We have changed all of our counters. We've changed them all out for wood, solid oak blocks, which is 1 part amazing and 10 parts terrifying, because now we've got solid wood counters. We're too scared to put anything on them, which is hilarious. And we've got a really nice new butler sink and new taps and new shelves and new lighting and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to look lovely, and I just want the house back. So I'm in my bedroom filming. It's quite noisy because the road is right outside. Thank you for that. It's got a nice vibe though, my bedroom. I really like it. I have got some incense burning up there. I think it's frankincense. And it's nice, but I don't know if it's my favourite. But anyway, I wanted to talk today about 2 main subjects. And the first one is poetry, which sounds really scary, and it's not. And the second thing I want to talk to you about is my favourite writer, the person who I feel is my guide. and her name is Jill Edwards, and she was an author, a British psychiatrist. She used to work for the NHS, and then she started writing books, and her books have literally changed my world. And I'm going to talk about her a little bit, and I hope that you've either heard of her before, or if you haven't, then you're going to be introduced to her today, and you're going to absolutely love her. I've got kind of a love-hate relationship with poetry. I wouldn't necessarily say that I am a poetry fan, especially in terms of what you learn about poetry at school. I didn't really like poetry at school. I distinctly remember having to learn Wordsworth's Daffodils, or maybe it was my brother who had to learn that, but I can remember reciting it and really not being very inspired by it. And then it's odd because I've grown up and my favourite poem is a poem by William Wordsworth. But I'm not talking about that poem today. I might talk about it some other day. I think that William Wordsworth was perhaps one of those higher beings. I think that some people are born and they know everything already. Do you know what I mean? I think Wordsworth was one of those people. When you read some of his poems, especially some of his obscure ones, the things that he implies that he knows in his poetry make me think that he maybe was a higher being. A bit like Leonardo da Vinci, I think that he was as well, for definite. But the poem that I wanted to talk to you about today is another favourite. It's not my favourite, but it is a really good one. And I'm sure that you've heard of this poet before, and it's Shel Silverstein. And the poem that I love, and I don't know, I felt drawn to this poem this month, and it is one that I read quite often, or I think about quite often. But this month, for some reason, it kept coming into my mind. And I think sometimes when something keeps coming into your mind, that's a little message, perhaps from your higher self or from the universe or God, giving you a bit of a nudge in the right direction. And the Shel Silverstein poem that I couldn't stop thinking about is: she had blue skin, and so did he. He kept it hid, and so did she. They searched for blue their whole life through, then passed right by and never knew. And the other reason I don't do poetry is because I'm not very good at reading it, as you can probably tell. I remember the first time I ever... It feels really weird sitting on the floor and I've got my knee up and just don't know what's going to be comfortable or not. I remember the first time I read that poem, it was like a revelation to me. I felt immediately that I had blue skin, and I feel that we layer up as time goes by because we're told different things by different people all the time. Be more, don't do that, be less. I was always being told to shh. When I was younger, I was always being told to shh, and I was always being told that I was too loud. And it's funny how that kind of stuff makes you put layers and layers and layers on to protect who is the real you. And I think that's probably why that poem feels so powerful, because I think that we're all wearing masks. And they can be different types of masks. They can be masks that represent the roles that we play. I feel that motherhood is a very powerful, strong mask. And I think that the reason that I find motherhood so exhausting is because I'm playing a role. And it doesn't come naturally to me, which is why I feel like I'm playing a role. I also feel that we want to protect ourselves, and so we hide ourselves, especially if we are potentially, or we perceive ourselves to be potentially different from the social norm. And when I was younger, I was very loud and I was quite extroverted, and then quite extroverted and quite happy. And then I got sent to boarding school when I was 9, and I remember being really, really disappointed about that, really upset. And I can remember distinctly feeling this wall go up, and it was like this wall that I'm gonna act like I'm absolutely fine. And I did. I acted like I was absolutely fine. And I remember the day that we got dropped off at school, and I was just like, okay, see ya. And my brother was devastated and ran down the school drive after my mum and dad's car. And I did this for 2 whole terms, and then the summer term came, and the wall must have just crumbled, and I can remember crying every single night of the summer term, because I felt abandoned. And that was quite a big lesson in learning about the masks that you put up, because I felt after that there was always going to be some sort of barrier to protect myself. Makes me feel a bit sad. I think I feel a bit sad for my 9-year-old self. The Shell poem is also like Rumi. I really like Rumi as well. He is another one of my favourite poets. And he has a quote, and it's part of one of his poems, and it is, "Tear off the mask, your face is glorious." I don't know if we're led to believe that is true or not. I don't know that I believe that that's true. But I do know that I feel inside that I don't want to try to be something that I'm not anymore. And, I felt like that for quite a long time. But, it's quite difficult removing all of the layers of conditioning that have built up over the years, especially if you're a woman. I think that it's much, much more difficult if you're a woman, because you're expected to be so much more. You're expected to be, if you're going to be an amazing athlete as a woman, you're expected to be an amazing athlete, number one, but you're also expected to be incredibly beautiful at the same time. Anything less than that, and there will be some sort of comment made about your looks, and which should never ever be made relevant, should they? And the same if you're an amazing doctor, well, that's just not good enough to just be an amazing doctor. Oh no, you have to be an amazing doctor and you have to look amazing as well all the time. And you have to wear makeup and you have to have nice clothes, and it's just so wrong. And it's shoved down our necks from such a young age. And I feel in many ways that I was quite lucky, and people of my generation were probably a little bit more lucky than you, because the only magazines really that were around when I was younger, or certainly that my mum had, were Good Housekeeping. And I never even looked at Good Housekeeping because I felt it was so boring. And there wasn't any internet, and there wasn't really that much telly, apart from on a Saturday morning perhaps. And so I didn't have so much of the media forcing stuff down my neck from a really young age. And I do feel ever so grateful for that. But it makes me worry about the younger generation. And it makes me worry for my daughter. Spring is blooming all around us, and today we went for a walk in the forest and heard our first cuckoo of the year. I can't remember when we heard it. I'm sure it was May last year, and I didn't think we were going to hear a cuckoo today because it's so cold. It's about 6-7 degrees today, and we were really surprised to hear it. I tried to record it, but Betsy's just talking over it, and then you can hear me going, shh, really, really.
Can you see it? Can you see it, but not?
Shush. It's just, I just need to brush up on my nature watching skills. But I got the new anthology, the spring anthology. I told you that I had the winter one, and I bought the spring edition, and it has a lovely thing about cuckoos. I'm slightly obsessed with cuckoo folklore and the fact that cuckoos are supposed to be the harbinger of spring. And there's websites where you can go and record when you hear your first cuckoo of the year, and compare it with other people's and see who gets in there first with the first cuckoo. But from the spring anthology, for countless generations, the cuckoo has been the best known and most eagerly awaited harbinger of spring. Many of the legends concerning the time of its arrival were connected with foretelling the kind of weather to be expected during the coming summer. Information of great importance for estimating the timing and magnitude of the harvest. Can you believe that people would farm based on when they heard their first cuckoo? Before people had calendars, the arrival of the cuckoo was also an invaluable point around which to set the farming programme, as its first appearance varies by little more than a week or so from year to year. So I really need to find out when I heard it last year. I think I might have heard it late last year, but I'm pretty sure it was maybe the 4th of May. And so that would be within 1 week. It was widely held that the cuckoo actually brought the spring weather with it. So if it came with a fine warm spell, that sort of weather would continue. Maybe Mr. Cuckoo arrived last week when we did have nice weather. The weather was of vital importance to our ancestors, and many believed that it was decreed and sent by a deity. I just love stuff like this. I live for stuff like this. It goes on to talk about various cuckoo festivals in the UK, and I just think it's lovely. So, traditional annual dates for the arrival of the cuckoo are different all over Europe. So, where is it? So, in the south of France, it's the 21st of March. And the north of Norway, it's the 1st of May. So, where is it? Oh, so I think I've got my timing exactly right. There were many such festivals in Britain, and one of the last to survive was the Towardnack Cuckoo Festival in Cornwall. This was always held on the Sunday nearest to the 28th of April, which itself was close to the usual date of the cuckoo's arrival. So maybe I heard the cuckoo when it actually arrived today. How fantastic. And then it has a well-known cuckoo song. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cherry tree, good bird, prithee, tell to me how many years I am to see. Oh, I think that might be... I think that might be asking the cuckoo to tell you how much longer you've got left to live. This has taken a dark turn. Oh, okay, yeah. Another well-known aspect of cuckoo lore was the belief that the bird was able to foretell the future. In Yorkshire, children used to play a game in which they danced around a cherry tree singing. Each child would then take it in turns to shake the tree, and the number of cherries which fell was said to correspond to the number of years they would live. Well, that's just terrifying, isn't it? I shan't be doing that. I do not want to know. So, my spring anthology and my annual cuckoo obsession. So, I'm going to move on to talking about my favourite author, Jill Edwards. And I was introduced to Jill when I was 27 years old. I remember this day so vividly. I had gone with my best friend at the time to a psychic fair, and we'd gone to have psychic readings, and we had these psychic readings, and as you would when you were 27 years old, and probably I was not in the best of places, to be honest with you, I was much, much more interested in the physical, actual things that she was telling me. Like, she told me that I was going to have a falling out with a really close friend and it would be forever, and those kind of things really interested me. I wasn't interested in anything beyond what I could see. I'd never really had any beliefs or any idea that reality was anything other than real up until that point. Anyway, so I listened intently to what she had to say and was really interested. And right at the end of our conversation, she said to me, I think you'd really enjoy this book. And she probably said it to everybody that day, or she probably said it to everybody who she ever met. But she told me that the book was called Living Magically by Jill Edwards. And I don't know why I did, because I wouldn't normally do what people say. Well, I certainly didn't when I was 27. And yeah, more interested in going out the weekend and getting completely wasted. But for some reason I went out and I bought Jill Edwards' Living Magically. And I mean, it changed my life. I look at all of can you see all of my marks? She's the lady that introduced me to pretty much everything that I live by nowadays, really. You know, that we create our own reality, that we are getting messages constantly that we need to listen to. She calls them whispers. And basically the whole book is about trying to remember how magical you are and living that way. At the time I read it, I was 27, a bit crazy. I didn't really understand it, I'll be honest. The concepts of the book were too big for my tiny mind to take in at the time. I can remember being very excited about it. I can remember reading it over and over again, but And I can remember that I started believing at that point, and my life did change from that point. It just took quite a bit longer for my life to really change, as in for me to get really happy. And now I just don't know what I'd do without Jill. I feel like she's my spirit guide, because sadly she a few years ago died from breast cancer. She's an amazing woman. She ended up moving to the Lake District, and she ran workshops. She just lived this idyllic life in the Lake District with her husband and her son. And she ran workshops and wrote books. I mean, she's written so many books. She's got this book which is called Stepping into the Magic. She's got a book called Pure Love, Pure Bliss. She's got loads of books. I highly recommend picking up any one of Jill's books. Living Magically for me will always be my favourite, because it was the first one I ever read. I think I got this Stepping into the Magic one, which is a bit retro. I got that from the Hay Festival one year I went there. And but yes, Jill basically just taught me everything that I know and feel now, and I'm so grateful to her. And I don't know what my life would be if she hadn't come into it when she did. Here are her main messages. Consciousness creates matter, which I think we all understand to a certain point. We create our own reality. Again, I think that has generally become the consensus. We live many, many lifetimes. Oh, how funny. So, at the beginning of this podcast, I said that I have got a favourite poem, and it's by William Wordsworth. I just opened that page in Jill Edwards' book, and the poem is there. The poem is called Ode to Immortality by William Wordsworth, and it's quite a long poem, but this particular verse is my favourite verse, and it's in Jill's book. And it basically goes, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life's star, have had elsewhere its setting and cometh from afar. Not in entire forgetfulness and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. Can't believe that. Things like this always happen with Jill. The other thing, her other favourite quote is, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And I can remember once being in quite a sad place and asking for a sign, as you do sometimes. And we got in the car, and I didn't know that Betsy had grabbed this book before we got in the car. And as we got in the car, she pressed the button on the book. It was one of those really annoying, noisy books. And it was row, row, row your boat. Oh, and I booed my eyes out in the car. So that's Jill. She did write one weird book towards the end, which I didn't. It was a really personal book, and I part of me, I can't bring myself to read it really. It's the book where she found out that she had cancer, and that she, I think it's either called Wild Love or Pure Love, but she was in love with another man, and he was married, and she was, I think she was either married or she was living with the man who she'd had her son with. But she'd fallen in love with this other man, and she felt that that's why she had got breast cancer, because she'd fallen in love with another man, which she felt meant that she should be with that other man. And he didn't want to leave his wife, or he didn't feel that he could. And I think it made her really sad. And she poured all of that into this book, and the book makes me really sad. I can't read it. So, I am an emotional wreck at the minute. I think it's because my house is all in disarray and I'm a big hormonal mess. Anyway, let me talk to you about my Merkaba box. I didn't bring anything with me from that box because I don't know where it is. In fact, where is it? I have no idea. But I did get something in the box which made me smile, because I've already got this thing, and it is a set of moon cards by my friend Jo. And I call her my friend because we've been friends on Instagram for years. She used to be quite into crochet, and so was I. And she doesn't do crochet anymore. She does all of this wonderful moon related stuff, and she's got these beautiful moon cards. And I use them, I really do use them a lot. And each card has got a different picture of the moon cycle, and then it tells you what to do to reset or refine or take action. And they're beautiful cards. So I got another set of those cards. So I'm thinking that I might do some sort of giveaway. I have to tell you that I am enjoying doing these podcasts and thinking about them and preparing them and filming them. I'm enjoying them a lot more than my yarn podcasts. I haven't done a yarn podcast for ages. I just feel like this is more me. And so I'm feeling like I might continue to do these kind of videos rather than yarn podcasts. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really know how I would do that. Whether I should do it on another channel altogether or continue doing it on this channel, I just don't know. But I've been thinking about it a lot. And I wonder if that's because that's what I'm meant to do. Let me know whether you think that I should continue doing it on this channel or on another channel, and whether you would be interested in me doing different types of videos as well, not just a monthly one, but talking about all sorts of different things. The idea really appeals to me, but I wouldn't be able to do that and yarn stuff. So it kind of feels like a major decision is on the horizon. And I pulled my oracle cards. I'll talk to you about those oracle cards next time because they are a real favourite of mine. They are the Messenger Oracle. And I pulled them this morning, and I pulled two. And the first one was You Were Born to Create. And it's about remembering your magic. And the second one was patience. Be patient. And I thought, yeah, that just about sums it up right now. I'm always thinking about this podcast. I feel like maybe it's something that I'm meant to do. I love your comments. I have had so many beautiful comments and comments that have actually made me cry, because I feel like I'm revealing my blue skin, and you are seeing me and responding to that. I probably shouldn't film when I'm this emotional. I hope you have a lovely May. I wonder if any of you have listened to the podcast that I recommended last month. I know quite a few of you have listened to Sarah Blondin and told me that you love her as much as I do. Somebody had said to me, oh, I listen to her every morning, and I think, so do I. So do I. I listened to her this morning and I just feel like she sets me up for the day in remembering how magical I am, how magical we all are. I'm looking forward to May and some nice weather, and talking to you again at the end of that month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.